Good morning, good morning, good morning. May is here and I'm so ready to open up my garden. Our last frost date was April the 15th, and I normally wait until after Mother's Day to start gardening because there's always that slim chance that there will be another frost in the immediate area. So the fountain cover is off. The hostas are in their glory already. And I have a lot of containers that I need to clean out and start fresh this year. But thus far, everything is looking really good. I do have one container of hostas that I want to focus on today. Something's wrong with this picture, right? 2, 4, 6. I divided these hostas a few years ago, and they usually sit on the back deck. Sometimes I move them around to different locations in the garden if there's a bare spot. But there is a few hostas that I divided, and it looks as if I missed something here. So my goal today is to dig up this hosta out of its container and divide it so I can pull this hosta out and leave this hosta in, which will match the rest of the hostas. So what I'm going to use is potting mix, and this is the Miracle Grow potting mix, but I also like to add a little perlite to my containers. So I have my worm castings that I usually mix with my potting mix. So along with the potting mix, I have worm castings and the perlite. So I'm going to take 2 scoops of the Miracle Grow potting mix and a scoop a generous amount, a generous scoop of the perlite, and that's going to be my mixture for both the hostas once I divide it. So I think I'm just going to see if I can wiggle this out of its container. These are my Dollar Tree containers that I drilled a few holes in a few years back. Let's see if I can lift it out. And I can. And this might get a little messy, but before I even get started dividing the plant, I'm just going to add that potting mix to the bottom of the container, and then I'll fill it in as I go. So I have a seedling tray. I'm just going to lay it on its side, and you can see that the roots are very vigorous. And I'm just going to pull the roots apart. And this is from last year. So you can see most of the soil is going, so it's really nice that I'm actually dividing this hosta today. It does need new potting mix, and if you have a serrated knife, the serrated knife will probably do a lot better than just trying to pull the plant apart by its roots. So I'm just going to dig in right here where I think the foliage changes in color to divide it. But the best time to divide your hostas is the spring of the year and the fall of the year. Now, hostas are very resilient, so even if you chose to divide your hosta in the summer, it would survive. Just have to give it a little more TLC. So I have a serrated knife that I think I'm going to go get in order to pull this apart. Make sure I get all of that plant right here. Okay, so this took some doing, but now that I have the hosta separated, this is a beautiful hosta, lime green hosta. I didn't quite get all of the variegated hosta out. And honestly, this has been a hosta that I've had in my garden for numerous years that I continue to divide and separate. So it was given to me. The variegated hosta was given to me, and if you know the name of the variegated hosta, just put that in the comment section. And now that I have this separated from this hosta, it'll eventually catch up, and even though it's just a half of the hosta, it'll catch up and it'll look just like the other 5 hostas on the step. So I'm going to put this back into the container and backfill it with new potting mix and move on to my next container. This video is about the containers for the spring of the year, and then I'll move on to the garden. And nothing goes to waste, so I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 hostas, the lime colored hostas that I'm going to put in their own individual pot. So you can divide your hostas, like I said earlier, the spring of the year or the fall of the year. That's the best time to divide them. These 2 containers are doing okay, but the spinach, which is in a smaller pot here, I need to add fertilizer and thin it out a little bit. That's been growing since last year. And this is my potatoes. And the potatoes are growing in a grow bag. And once I start to see the leaves brown, then I know the potatoes are mature enough to pick. But right now, I think I'm just going to fertilize this and leave this container alone. The spinach definitely needs to be thin, otherwise it's not going to survive. And this is a small grow bag, so I may even put it in a larger container. This is my lettuce bowl, which I am loving. I have 2 varieties of lettuce in here. It too needs to be thinned, and these little helicopter things fly all over the place and try to start to grow. So I'm just going to pick that out. But I am going to thin the lettuce, and I had pictures on my Instagram, and someone said, eat those greens, microgreens. Well, yes, I do. So even though I'm thinning out the plant, these I will rinse off and just pop them into your salad. They're good. You can eat it just like that. So I'm just going to thin out this container, which will give more room for the lettuce to continue to grow. Lettuce is a cool weather crop, and you do really have to be careful that it's not placed or grown in the sun, direct sun. Started in the spring of the year, because as summer comes along, the lettuce could actually bolt. That's because it's too hot. It's going to send up seeds. So I'm just going to thin this out a little bit. And actually, all of these could be used to start another lettuce bowl if you desire. But what I'll do is, as these grow, as they continue to grow, it's called the cut and come again. Once the lettuce reaches a certain height, you don't cut the top or pull the whole leaf out, the head of lettuce out. You just cut what you need for your salad and come again. Don't pull the center part of the lettuce, just pull the sides of the lettuce. So to cut and come again. And now that the weather is really starting to warm up, you have to consider keeping your lettuce bowl in a cool area in your yard so it doesn't bolt. But this is looking good. This variety is left over from some seeds that I had in another pack. So I just threw them in with the botanical interest. So let's move on to the next container. Okay, so this is a 5-gallon grow bag that I had last year with, I believe it was the Scotch bonnet peppers in. You don't want to use the same container for your tomatoes that you used last year. Or these are Tiny Tims. These are Tiny Tim tomatoes that I started inside under grow lights, and they are ready to be planted. These are the little, I want to call them little salad tomatoes that you usually add to your salads, the real tiny ones. And I know that I used this variety last year, and I know that they are determinate. You can put this in a 5-gallon grow bag and it's not going to overtake the container. They were really good last year. Actually, towards the end of the growing season, I added a little baking soda just to sweeten up the soil, and the plants really did thrive. And had so many left over that I end up sun drying or air drying the tomatoes out. You can check out that video from last year. So let's get started. Again, I have some worm castings that I took out of my worm bin. I'm going to add that to the container because I am amending the soil. I'm not going to throw it out because it's still pretty good. I used it last year, and that was the first year that I had it in this container. So I'm just going to add a couple of scoops of potting mix to the container to help amend the soil. And a cup of, that's left over from the other project. I'm going to add, again, some perlite to help aerate the soil. Excuse me. I'm going to add that to the container. And believe it or not, I'm going to place maybe three of the most healthiest plants, the Tiny Tims, into this container. And actually I planted 2 seeds in each section, and just about I had pretty much complete germination. So some of these are going to be left over. We have a yard sale coming up. I probably end up trying to either give them away or see if some family or friends need Tiny Tim tomatoes for this year. So now that that's mixed up pretty good, I'm going, this is leftover. This is one of the Scotch bonnets. I probably could open that up and find some seeds, but I do have a plant already started for the Scotch bonnet, so that's not going to be necessary. I am going to add a little biotone to the plants to help them get started. Generous amount of that. And I'm just going to layer that in. And my last and final ingredients for my tomatoes are banana peelings. They like the potassium. They like the nutrients from the banana peeling. So let's add that. Okay, so this is just my banana peel from this morning. I'm going to add this to my soil, and I want to cover it very well so no furry friends will dig this up. That's what I call them. They're my fairy friends. And then I'll add another layer of potting mix to this container. And again, I'm still using the Miracle Grow potting mix. That's actually what was on sale at the time that I purchased it. So whatever potting mix is on sale is what I use for my containers. It's a difference if I'm actually planting new seedlings in the ground. I'll use garden soil. Okay, so that is done. I think I'm gonna go for one in the center. Let's not do that. Let's do one here, and one here. So I'll just add the extra helping of the espoma to help with the root development of the seedling. And I'll work that in. Now, with the tomato plants, you can actually bury the tomato all the way up to, even though the roots are down here, you can bury the tomato all the way to this tip and it will thrive. So let's do that. I'm going to all the way down, pull off that leaf because you won't need it, and I'll do the same thing with the other tomato plant. They all look healthy, but just discard all of these leaves and plant right up to the very tip. You see? Dig in and bury it right up to the, all of these little hairy things here. Those will become the new roots for the tomato plant. You can't do this with all of your seedlings, but this is well known that you can do this with the tomatoes. It gives it a lot more stability in the container, and there you have it. Now this, I need to put my label, even though you can tell it's tomatoes. I like to know what variety that I planted, so that, and in my case, I'm happy with it. Again, I will purchase these seeds. So I'll stick this right in the center. It doesn't really need to be seen. And then I'll stick this out in the garden. So this is my second container. I'm going to move on to my third and final container for today, so the video doesn't become too long. And yes, I will water all of these in. Okay, my third and final container is my cannas. This is my cannas. I boxed them up, pulled them up out of the pots from last year. I boxed them up, and now I'm ready to put them in their container. I can divide this again, which I probably will, to see if I can grow them in other containers or in the ground. But so let's get started. My third and final container for today is my cannas. And what you see is the paper, shredded paper that I use to store the containers over the winter months in Zone 7, Delaware. You may or you may not be able to overwinter your cannas outdoors. It depends on the climate. Usually if the cannas are planted near a concrete area, like the side of your house, it will be able to withstand some of the cold winters, and they may come back. I don't like to chance that, so I dig up my cannas. I put them in a box, add shredded paper just to keep them from completely drying out. And all of these eyes that you see are new cannas. So I think off camera what I'm going to do is I'll pull it apart, add some to the container, such as this, and the others I'm going to place somewhere in the garden for aesthetics, to balance out the yard. So I like the cannas in the yard because it gives me that tropical island feel. And so this container is next to my chair that I normally sit in when I'm out back during the summer months. So off camera, I am going to divide the cannas. I will tell you this: if you put your cannas in a container, be very careful that the roots may overtake the container and you may have a difficult time pulling the canna out at the end of the season. But they're beautiful. I love them. These are the red flower varieties. There are other cultivars. There are other specimens of the canna, but this one is what I like in the backyard. So here we go. Okay, so let's move to my final container that sits on the deck. This also had one of the cannas. I'm going to remove some of the potting mix because the root density in the pots from last year, and then I'm going to pot this container up heavily. So here we go. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to remove some of the potting mix. So again, I'm just removing some of the potting mix from last year's container that the canna was in. And I'm going to amend the soil with a layer of new potting mix and perlite. And I want this pot to be very full, so I have one large clump that I'm going to put in the center, and then another area of the garden I'll add some cannas. Okay, so pretty much pulled out the center of last year's potting mix, and now I'm just going to amend the soil with a new layer of potting mix and perlite. And I have a large clump that I'm just going to add to this container for visual preference when I come out on the deck. So this is a larger clump that I'm just going to place in the center. All the eyes will eventually find their way. So this is what I would like to see when I first step out on my deck in the morning. And like I said, the canna is a tropical plant, so it loves the heat. I'm going to cut these off because this is last year's growth, and that'll prevent any diseases from occurring. So let's do that. I'll just cut these back. And you actually can put this in a compost bin. You don't have to get rid of it, discard it in your trash. But yeah, just add that to your compost bin. So here are all the eyes. This is going to protrude over the top. It is a vigorous tropical plant, but I love to see it in full bloom in the summertime. So we're just going to add that there, cover it up, and about another month I should have some growth that should be coming through. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, happy gardening.